Hello and welcome to the EV Cafe Takeaway, a podcast focused on that zero emission future that we all hope for. Every week I'm joined by one of the wonderful people of the EV Cafe, and this week is no exception. I've got the lovely John Curtis. John, hello, how are you?
Oh, do you know what? I'm absolutely buzzing for today because our guest is somebody very, very special that I've known for a long time, but know very little about. We always talk work, and I'm fascinated to see who this is behind the job title, because Mark is quite some guy.
Well, talk about steal my thunder. But anyway, let's introduce, because we are joined every week, as always, by innovators, pioneers, collaborators, industry big brains. And we've just discovered this man as the brain the size of a planet. And we're going to explore said brain. We're first journeying into the brain of Mark Pearce from Hydrock, data and AI engineering lead, no less, in a world that is immensely complicated. But we have talked recently on the podcast about AI, so this is going to be a very interesting chat. Mark, very welcome to you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's great to finally be on one, not just watching and listening in.
So it's you that listens to them.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm the one viewer. And yes, no, there are definitely more than me. So just to clarify, brain the size of a planet, but very little in it. Let's just be clear. Get started.
Well, let's find out exactly what's there. So, talk to me your job title, data and AI engineering lead. Of course, AI is a very new thing, or relatively new. So just talk us, Hydrock, give us the lift speech. So we've just jumped in the lift. Oh, hello, Mark. You look interesting. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what your job title even means.
Yeah. So basically, I moved jobs. So as John and you will know, I was focused in the EV sector from an engineering standpoint for the last 3 or 4 years. And as part of that, it sort of grew arms and legs into looking at ways to optimize net zero strategies and things like that. So it was what we did is we moved over into what we call a central function overhead team. So we were able to work with all of the different divisions in our engineering consultancy. So Hydrock, now Stantec, because we were recently acquired by Stantec. But then basically be able to take what we learned in terms of big data, having to analyze traffic patterns for the entirety of the UK, etc., and then apply that across everything we do. And to help manage that, we also use AI, and that's not ChatGPT is wonderful, but when it tries to engineering calculations, it doesn't like it that much. So we have to build our own. So that's where that sort of come from. So it's about analyzing big data and then using AI to further that goal. And the aim of it really is to create solve the problems that surround us with climate change. There are limiting factors. It's not wave a magic wand and everyone drives EVs. It's there are a lot of problems to solve. There are still a lot of problems to solve, and as part of that, as engineers, that's our challenge. To push it forward, that's what we're doing. That's how we're trying to solve it.
Mark, there's an awful lot of fear about AI in the world, and and I think it comes from a lack of understanding. We are embracing AI as much as we can at the EV Cafe. Excuse me, I use it quite a lot in terms of creating content. But for many, there is a fear that AI is going to lead us down a path we do not want to go down. How do you help people understand what AI can do for us without it causing us difficulty?
I think a key thing is to understand, I think AI can appear very scary when you look at it from a broad picture, and there's a lot of things that now use AI, but the reality is it still has very much its limitations, and will continue to do so for quite a long time, because it still relies on a lot of computing power. And although computing power is getting better and better, it's nowhere near the sort of like crazy pants level it needs to be to replicate a human mind. So while it can be very good at helping solve very, very specific equations, very, very specific challenges, and GTP is a prime example of this. It's very good at solving general questions. So looking up answers on the internet, helping write code, doing the bulk work and stuff. But if you need to do something very, very specific, so it's like, I need a structural calculation for this cross section of beam, it's just it loses it completely. Whereas what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to have that done by an engineer, checked by an engineer, and that also comes down to accountability. At what point are we going to have to say, well, at some point someone's going to have to check this, but we can't just blame the machine. And that's I don't know. There's a brilliant film which I don't know whether you have seen about a group of black women who worked in NASA, and
Yes,
I can't remember the name of the film. It's really annoying me now. Yes. Absolutely brilliant film. And in that, the IBM machine they bring in that's going to replace everyone's jobs and do that, on the day, the calculations come out at two different numbers. Yeah. And they need someone to check it. And that is, it doesn't matter how good technology gets, there's always going to be that point. And I think that's what people need to focus on, is that what it is there is to do is enhance your job, not replace it. And think about all the free time then you can do to do all the fun things that the AI can't do, the more complicated, the more challenging stuff, and leave the boring stuff to someone who can do it in terms of AI.
It's called Hidden Figures, Mark.
Hidden Figures, thank you. I knew I knew it had something to do with the key lines in the film. I can remember what it was. Yes, Hidden Figures, yeah. Thank you.
So, I mean, in our industry, for instance, we've got Tesla, an autopilot, using AI. And I remember when I did my law degree, there was a question about if AI had to make a decision between ploughing into a child with a car or ploughing into a 70-year-old vicar with a car, which choice would it make? Humans can't surely be involved in engineering to that degree that you can make that value judgment. It's a very hard and fast tool.
Yeah, it gets complicated at that stage, and I think that's part of the thing. Is one of the questions, we're talking about engineering questions that haven't been answered. It's how to deal with those sorts of problems.
Yeah.
And I think because the paradox you're talking about there was originally to do with if you're stood next to a railway point, and there's a trolley bus going towards two different sets of people who are tied to the tracks. Which one do you move? That's kind of that was the original paradox, and all they've done is just that's the same for then as it is now. Is it at what point does if the machine is changing the point rather than the human, does it make the decision it needs to make? And that's where we're not really at yet. We're still working on that bit, and I think at some point, there's going to be a challenge there around, is it the right decision? And part of it's going to be along the way of we're going to have to try it and see. Because the key thing is like people picture that scenario and they're worried about that scenario, but how often do you reckon in the real world that scenario comes up? And the vehicle is just not able to stop when it needs to stop. It's the trick is that it just needs to be safer than humans. That's a criteria we're trying to get at. It's like when you talk about autonomous vehicles, it's like your criteria isn't perfection. It's just got to be better than us. Yes. And I think that's the real point around the AI in vehicles kind of thing.
Humans need somebody to blame often. When something goes wrong, when we lose somebody from our lives because of an accident, we want somebody to point the finger at. Now that is a natural human response, and we will blame AI very, very quickly. If we can, because it's an inanimate thing and we can kind of scream at it, and it's harder than to blame humans. But anyway, I think that there's a lot of philosophical thinking, but in reality, your time as in Hydrock and travel planning is something that we've even been talking about today with London and congestion zones and the idea of charging for congestion zones. We don't need AI to tell us that that's going to cause some people grief, and some people will be very happy about said sort of conundrum around this charging. What have you learned from travel planning and the incentivizing that can really bring, so Hydrock, what do they bring to the party to help around understanding, migration of travel and people and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is accessibility. I mean, from like the 1960s onwards, it's the UK has always remained very car focused and car heavy. Since the abolition of public transport, really, with the Beaching Act and all this kind of stuff that went on, and the removal of railway lines from rural locations, especially where I am, because I'm based in Cornwall. We've got one main line goes in and out, and that's it. And maybe a couple of branch lines, but not masses, not like we used to have, and certainly in other places it's not as good. And now we're sort of trying to claw back from that. We're trying to encourage this alternative modes. We're trying to say, okay, the car isn't the answer to everything, and now we're having to readjust our strategy as a whole. And what we found really is we're looking for little gains, because it's the little gains that can make a big difference. You're not going to get, if you've got 20% of people currently cycling, you're very unlikely to get 40% of people, 50% of people, 60% of people cycling. You want to get that 25, that 30% first. And it's about encouraging, what puts people off. Is it safety in a particular location? Is it security? Is it, what does it look like? And then you try and solve those problems at a local basis. So you're like, okay, we're going to provide a new cycleway, better lock-up facilities for a cycle. It's inside the office, inside lockers, and for example, things like that. You don't have to park it on the street. You don't have to park it here, which is traditionally where it's been what's been the case. So. A lot of that kind of thing is what we're looking at in terms of, so cycle, public transport routes, increasing the number of buses when we can, developer contributions when they're building houses, which, a lot of people don't talk about when, when a housing development goes in, you think, okay, well, they're just making a load of money off the houses, but actually quite a considerable amount of that goes back into the local authority to increase the number of bus services or increase that, and that's done under Section 278 and Section 106 agreements. So it's that kind of element is that. I'm going back to my old job there. That's my that's back in transport planning. I've not done that for a long time. But yeah, that's really critical. That's really key in terms of getting that sustainable angle, because it's that behaviour change that's really important.
Yeah, and does your new job in data and AI engineering, how does it lend itself to behavioral change, or doesn't it? Is it more about analysis and outcomes that could then generate behavior change? Yeah,
so definitely more so. I mean, one thing we do a lot of is behavioral modeling in our team, and part of that is things like, Strat EV, for example, which is our sort of flagship EV product we use with a load of developers, is understanding how and where people are going to charge and what they need. But then specifically from the back end of that, what do you need to power it? Because it's all well and good saying, okay, I'm going to whack in 36 chargers here that are all 120, 150 DC. But if you can't power that at peak load, what does it look like? And what does curtailment look like? And actually, if you curtail people, if you say, okay, well, actually only at peak times you can only have 60 or 50, what does that do for your customer base and et cetera, and your business case? And that's what we look at from a developer standpoint, to then say, when you're looking at leasing these or whatever you're going to do with these charging spaces, you need to consider these facts and make sure you can actually get the connection you want from the grid. And if you're not, you can bolster it with battery storage and PV. And that's what we're sort of looking at in terms of that. Interestingly enough, we've just put in a bid. I can't say for what, unfortunately, but we have just put in a bid which is reliant on, is encouraging the use of EV vehicles to make communities better where they suffer from air quality issues en route to a major airport. So it's like there's an airport sort of out of the way a little bit, and you have to come off the main road to get to it, and it goes through a lot of tiny communities and that kind of thing. That's where our sort of focus is at the moment, less so on the transport guys do the sustainability angle and things like that, but that's more because it's so focused on the specific problems in a location or an area rather than a wider strategy. They focus on that bit, so that's sort of where we're at, if you see what I mean.
I do, Mark, and it leads me to the question, because you're talking about your job and sustainability is obviously playing a real important part in it, and EV has been a focus of yours, and ultimately is sort of the solution in many of the challenges that you're being faced with today. But how did you get here? Because I mean, sustainability wasn't born in us when we woke up. Or we were born and we went through school and da 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 da. How did you get to this point? Because obviously you're obviously very clever. You do have a lot of capacity certainly within your field of expertise. What is it that got you into that sustainability piece? Why do you want to use your intellect, your knowledge to make life more sustainable for others?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. I think so. I was talking speaking to John about this the other day, but earlier on so I didn't start off. I left school at 16 and went off to go do an apprenticeship on a rail network. So working with Network Rail, one of their consultants called Vital Rail. And basically learned to be what I commonly refer to as a track monkey. If anyone is listening, don't take that offensively. It's just what we used to call ourselves. Where I think it varies depending on different regions, etc. But that was actually physically going out and moving the track and doing this kind of stuff because I've always had an interest in railways. And turns out as a job, I hated it. Like as a hobby, great. As a career, terrible. So I left that role and then joined. And really, where my sustainability focus came from was working at Tesco for about 6 months, and because interestingly enough, everything they did there, I work in a Cornwall location, so it's very rural, and they were talking about we got 3 lorry deliveries a day. They're all coming from Wales or whatever. They were coming from the distribution centre, travelling hundreds of miles, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, how much fuel are they burning to do all of this? And it's peak summer. Everyone comes to Cornwall, but everyone drives. Or certainly at that time when I worked there, everyone drove, everyone did everything, and you're thinking, just for this holiday, just for this, for something that is a luxury for a lot of people, and the amount of carbon and energy that's going into the air and nitrous oxide and stuff like that, and you're starting to think, wow, this is mad. And due to my passion, and I was very lucky in a way because due to my passion in engineering, I got a job at Cormac, which is the sort of arm's length company of Cornwall Council. So essentially working for the local authority to design roads, to being what I refer to as a CAD monkey to John earlier as well. So everyone knows what that is, and essentially just designing roads up and things like that. But because of that interest, because of that peak of sustainability, looking at that, I got headhunted into the transport planning team there, and then it's sort of grown from there. So transport into Hydrock, and then from there it was like, okay, well, transport is no longer just about cars moving around or buses moving around or cycles moving around. It's actually part of this interconnected network of all these other things and all these other disciplines now. Energy sector, flood risk, geoclimate. All these kind of things, and our smart energy and sustainability team looking at climate risk, etc., things like that. So all of that needs to come together, and as part of that, I've sort of become a focal pin of the data side. So how do we bring all this data together? What can we make out of it? What can we use it for? And things like that. So that's what we're that's how that sort of came about. If you see what I mean.
That's a really useful explanation, Mark, because I was just sitting here thinking, Hydrock is one of those behemoths of the world that few have heard of. What is the breadth of activity that you undertake as an organisation? What do you do?
Yeah, so it's all the major engineering disciplines. So it's things like structural engineering, mechanical, electrical. We have a nuclear team who does nuclear management consultancy. We've got geo, flood risk, transport. I'm just trying to list them all off now, but it's essentially all the engineering disciplines. I'm going to miss people out. But and now we've just joined Stantec. So we were originally 1,000 strong, mainly focused in the UK. Couple of international offices, so in Australia, New Zealand, and in the Middle East as well. And now we've just been acquired by Stantec, so that's a 36,000 strong organisation headed out of Canada. So the breadth has expanded quite massively for us, and our first instinct was to get in the door, and we were already having conversations about, okay, well, we got jobs in Pittsburgh or Kansas and things like that where we can take our sustainability knowledge, where the Americas at the moment probably lagging a bit behind, certainly in some states, and we're now bringing that forward and saying, well, actually, here's what we've learned, here's what you can do, here's what here's a new sustainability angle, increasing cycle links within certain cities, etc. So so a really it's really nice to have that sort of door open and then be like, okay, well, we can now share our knowledge with the world rather than just having this individual sector, which is nice.
Has it given both Hydrock and Stantec coming together? Has it given you a new vision? Do you feel energized? Let's use be cheesy to see what you suggested there, like reaching a bigger audience, moving it forward, and really driving that sustainability message home.
Yeah, and that was something I was really pleased about the acquisition, because it was so obviously when you're in a smaller company, we were one of the last British owned consultancies, large consultancies the size the left. Now we have been bought up by a Canadian organisation, but the UK global front is very big. There's 4,000 of them, and including us now. So it's a big element of it. And what actually really excites me is not necessarily the work or the jobs or what they have access to, although that that's going very well. And the reason the acquisition happened was because they needed a lot more people to deal with the work that they were getting in. But also because their main focus is sustainability, and all their staff have that as a key focus of what they do, and you feel it. You feel it through the company. It's imagine just going into a room of people and you think, oh god, we've been acquired and we don't know who these people are going to be like, and you sort of go in there and all like, oh yeah, I drive a Jag and all this kind of stuff, and it's, you go like that and you're like, oh no, yes, I play golf on the weekend. I take my private jet over to holidays to Mallorca, and you're like, oh no, please stop talking. But actually, no, it's not like that. It's really sustainable in a really good way, and really about giving back to communities. Just the other week, the Stantec group, we've just been acquired. It's only been a couple of months, but they've already said, okay, we're doing this community allotment thing where we really want to expand and help allotments grow, because they're really good for the environment and they're really good for communities. In terms of reducing dependence on mega stores to be able to provide vegetables, you can get them locally. Also, there's a green patch that you can go work essentially in a city, and they did that in Bristol, and that was phenomenal. And so I'm really excited what the future brings. It's Hydrock but scaled up to a level where you can start making a global difference, which is excellent.
So
nice.
Up till now, what's the thing that you are most proud of having delivered? Because you've worked on some phenomenal projects.
I'm most proud of is a tricky one. There was a site recently, actually. I'd say probably the most recent. To me, the most exciting projects are always the ones that are on now, because by the time I've done a site, technology's moved on to a point where I can start playing with new stuff. Right? That's the key thing. Like, I am totally the new and shiny. Absolutely, everything is like, if it's new, it's shiny. I want to play with it, and I'm awful for that. And as that reason, we've just completed a study where we've balanced off large-scale battery infrastructure to deal with a service station DC charging, and with solar energy and things like that. And actually, what we found is that we could, resizing grid connections and looking at it a different way, we could service a lot of the energy through this sort of like green, local sustainable energy. And what we were talking about there was energy security.
Yes,
because if they're not relying on the grid, if the grid goes out for whatever reason, then they've got the energy supply on site. You just flick the switch flicks over, and they can still trade and they can still do this. And actually, that made a massive difference. So that kind of element is probably I say proudest of. It's just because I like shiny technology, being able to couple all those things together in one model and go, oh yeah, it does work.
I love this stuff, because this is really interesting. You see somebody so passionate about something which, frankly, blows my mind. I couldn't even begin to think about a day in the life of Mark Pearce. But I can feel that excitement for what you do. Have you always loved data, or is this something you've learned to develop?
Oh no, I've always been keen on data. Numbers is what I while people were reading Harry Potter, I was sat there reading diagrams of steam engines and drawings and working out how they all work and stuff like that. You get the compression ratios and things like that. Just wow. a massive nerd from day one. And but the reality is that I enjoy Lord of the Rings. I enjoy the fantasy style as well. But from really on, what really gets me going is the problem solving. That feeling when you solve a problem. It's not necessarily the numbers that are the interesting bit for me. It's not, I don't look at a sheet of numbers and get really excited. It's now I've made something from that didn't currently exist.
Yes.
You talk about inspirational characters. You're looking at people people might say Elon Musk or something like that. It's nothing to do with, for me. No, I'm not really that interested in that. It's too political. For me, my idol is Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. Just being able to like build a spaceship out of parts because why not? That's if I've got a bunch of data. What can I build a spaceship out of this? Why not? Let's give it a go. And that's the kind of element I'm in. So it's slightly eccentric, but
I love that. Mark, you used the N word, nerd, and it's a word that has been used for me, and I think probably Paul in his day has been talked about as a van nerd. Nerd. Being a nerd, I think, is a superpower, but it's difficult for other people sometimes to relate to you on a human level because we're quite special, and we have these talents that others don't readily identify with. Has being a nerd made your life better or harder in terms of other people?
Certainly from early on, harder. Like, in the best world in the world, kids are unforgiving, right? Yes. It's just the way it is. And, school is difficult for me, as you might imagine. But once I came out of school, once I came out of that environment and I went into a work environment where you get pushed into a way that people are passionate about what they do. So like the Cormac guys, brilliant engineers, absolutely through and through. And they'll give you the time of day in terms of like, how do I design this? What do I do? Where do I go from square one? And you start getting into that sort of like knowledge. And then when you connect with people on that basis, you connect with something that they're passionate about. It suddenly doesn't become, a chore anymore. I'm not that into football, really, but I know enough about statistics to be able to talk about it in a way that I can get passionate with someone, right? So it's like I can, it's a way of like you just have to connect with people on different bases about what excites them, what excites to get into them, and once I work that out. I wasn't particularly popular at Cormac, it has to be said, because I was quite a loudmouth in terms of my opinions. But it's all once I learned to sort of rein that back in and go, actually, do you know what? You're only I was only a teenager at that point. I joined Cormac at 17. So, I was one of these cocky teenagers that knew everything. And once I sort of realized that I don't know everything, and to be fair, from that point on, I knew nothing at that point. I still know nothing at this point. And, compared to what, as things grow and things change, you sort of like, you sort of get humbled to yourself and you sort of go, okay, actually, you know what? I can connect with people now because if I come from this at an angle of I'm just trying to learn more about you. I'm trying to learn more, and I can connect with you on what are you passionate about, and that interests me. And what makes people passionate is then you can turn into a subject. And as someone who deals with data and like you say is a self-described nerd, if you will, that's for me that was the easiest way to connect with people. Analyze them in the most horrible way, but it is what you do, and you can take a real interest in people's hobbies, and you think actually no, that's really cool. We got
Mark. Is this something that you've had to teach yourself? I mean, you referred back to school. I mean, I had periods of school which were incredibly difficult for various different reasons, and you're right. Kids can be really cruel and very difficult. What was it that separated you from your peer groups at that time? Was it the nerdy interests that you had, or was it just this lack of ability to communicate, which you've clearly addressed in a very definite way now? It's what seems to me like you've almost taken a scientific approach to being able to communicate with others, because we all have to kind of make our way in understanding all of this. Well, how did that sort of play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, trial and error, mostly error. To be honest with you, I wasn't even within my friend group. I probably wasn't the most popular, and that was, I thought that being smart meant you knew everything, And that was so that I had to be a bit of a know-it-all, and the problem is that trying to be a know-it-all in a lot of subjects, you don't actually know anything, and you get very caught out very quickly. So when you got caught out, everyone just pointed and laughed at you, and then you felt silly. And it was, and that was kind of the way it was. And even amongst my my friend group, it was like that. Whereas, as I've grown, as I've talked to more people, as I've, embraced hobbies. I mean, like, this is kind of funny, and people even joke about it in the office, but the average age of the people I hang out with is probably in their mid-60s, 70s, because,
that's where you like get on with John and I.
You're not that old. Nice try. Because I'm into model engineering, steam engines, all this kind of stuff, and that's what interests them. And with my my other hobby, my wargaming stuff, that kind of it lends itself a little bit to that age group, and also others who are similar in terms of their ability to communicate, etc. Things like that. So it's nice that now I've sort of had this environment where I can sort of okay, I kind of understand what's going on here. I learn from those who have been through that process, who understand that, and also then apply that in a way that works for me. Because like you say, everyone's different, and it's not like someone can say, okay. And you see these posts on LinkedIn all the time. It's like the key to communication is X, Y, and Z, and you should always do this in an email. And it's like, don't do that. Just find what works for you and works for the people you're working with. Be open, be honest, say, oh, did you like the way I communicated with you? Did you like this? Did you like that? Get feedback. Get data, analyze it, and go, did that work? Did that not work? Why did that not work? Oh, actually, I kind of annoyed that person. Why did I annoy that person? That wasn't my intention. My intention is never to annoy anyone. So, what was the output of that? And then sort of work from there. And sometimes it's just, sucking it up and being like, yeah, no, I made a cock up. This is the kind of point. It's kind of like, all right, yeah, okay, fair enough. I should have done this differently. And I think, the team I have here is really relaxed and is really chilled. And like I said, the first thing I tell people is don't upset the admin. That's the key. The first rule of Fight Club in Hydrock is don't upset the admin, because admin staff do more for anyone than you ever believe. That is the first rule, and the second rule is if I'm doing something you are uncomfortable with, and you don't think about my grade, don't think about where I am, what I'm doing, etc., things like that, you tell me instantly, I don't like this, stop. I don't like what you're doing, or I think there's a better way of doing this, you tell me, and I will 100% listen, and I'll take it on board. And if I don't take it on board, by all means catch me a different day and say, you didn't take it on board, I'm going to, there's a slap on the wrist as well. So, and that's really nurtured this environment of innovation, growth. Everyone has a good idea. No idea is stupid. If it is a stupid idea and it works, it's not stupid. That was the sort of motto for a lot of stuff we built back in the day. So, this shouldn't work, but it does. So we'll just leave it alone. So that kind of element was really key, and yeah.
Mark, honestly, it's so impressive to you say you love problem solving. And you really have kind of looked into yourself to see where the problems are, and you've solved them, and you are continually solving. It is quite beautiful to see, and that might sound a very subjective word, but it is quite beautiful to see the way that you have approached life and really made yourself fit within the world around you. And I think it's a real credit to you. And honestly, I for one feel like I would love to work for you and with you, because I would get so much out of that. Because one, you're constantly analysing. You would help me communicate at my best. I like to think I'm okay at communicating, but there are lots of times where I do upset people, or I do cross boundaries and lines, and I miss it entirely. But I don't think you do. I think you're constantly aware and constantly working on it and constantly developing. And I think you're going to make a massive difference. You've already made a massive difference. I think you're going to continue to do that. And I think, for me, data and AI and engineering is in very, very safe hands from what I can sense. It excites me. I love communication. I love people, and I love this connecting. And you're taking it to a new level. And I love that. It's very exciting, isn't it, John?
Well, I mean,
I can see a question, John.
yeah, Mark is award-winning, and Mark is quite humble, but recently won an EVs award, didn't you, Mark? Tell us about it.
Yeah, there's the Under 30s award, which was I was nominated for by one of my colleagues. Funnily enough, I wasn't in the innovation team at the time, but the team I've now moved into is they nominated me off the back of some work we did with them, and and I'll tell you what was key about that, and I spoke to the judges sort of like afterwards, because engineering is such a dark art in terms of like no one sees what we do. You're not going to see my name flagged on any post where Osprey develop a charging point or Shell Recharge put in a new thing. We tried working in that sector. It didn't really work out for us because what we are better at doing is doing the bit beforehand, doing the planning, working with the developers, working with the investors in that sector, and going, okay, well, what is a successful plan? What does a successful outcome look like for everyone in terms of both net gain, monetary return, and a happy client in the end, i.e. the person plugging their charge in. And that was, so our real into ChargeSafe. Kate, ChargeSafe, absolutely brilliant. She came and did a talk with our team. So they understand, from a very early doors, from literally, from greenfield up, what makes a successful site. Various other teams we worked with over, with looking at the Shell equipment, looking at Unex, looking at, I'm going to miss off a load of people, the 20 odd or so charging point operators we speak to, because there are so many out there. All their solutions, like they all excel at their little bit. They got the nation things, and it's just picking the right people per site. It's not one person covers all bases is excellent. I know Sam's going to tell me off for doing that because I know he's group serve, but
doesn't this show you everything you need to know about Mark Pearce? The question was about your genius, and what you do is you focus on everybody else. It's a team game, and the reality was that was a personal award for you. And I think part of your massive, massive power is being so humble about such an incredible ability to infuse, to analyze, to drive things forward and get shit done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I definitely think, I sort of lost my way on that with a tangent talking about people. But the point of that award really was around some work what we got back from the understanding that you're talking about the communication with people and understanding, the feedback on what we got. And the difference the judges told me for that award purely was around people gave personalized feedback to say, I was really happy with, external clients, people we'd worked with were just like, we were really happy with the communication, the feedback we got, the solution we got from Hydrock and from Mark, and that was really nice for me to hear, because again, you say it's engineering is not it doesn't get shouted about enough, especially I would say in the EV sector. A lot of people focus on putting the chargers in the ground, but there's a hell of a lot of work that needs to go behind before you do that. And in terms of just is it suitable? Is it safe? Is it going to be sustainable? Just because if you're just plugging into the grid and you're just causing problems for things down the line, is it actually a benefit to the community? And it's got to be done in the right way. And that's what where we come in and really help with. So yeah, it was nice to hear that it works in a way.
And can I just say, I knew you'd got the award. I'd forgotten that it was the Under 30s award.
Oh yeah,
and it is so rare that we are talking to people that have achieved so much in such a relatively short space of time. And I almost forget, being a bit older now, that there are people under 30 out there. It's like, who are these under 30s?
We do. I promise I exist. We do exist.
But it's quite incredible, and it is testament to the fact of how seriously you've taken it all. Who, if any one person or a few people, who in your life have been inspirational? Who have you learnt from and gone, do you know what? I can really engage and learn from that person. Who's inspirational for you?
Well, two people, to be honest, in my family. So my granddad is the one who got me into. He took the time to teach me how to solder when I was younger. when everyone else was sort of like, playing with, Lego and things like that, which is great. It's a great construction tool. But he was like, okay, no, Broadbones, we're going to build a robot that does this, or we're going to build a train set, because he knew I was into trains. So he built me a train set, and through that it was like, okay, well, stuff would break and stuff would thing, and it was like, okay, we're not just going to buy a new one. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at why a motor does what it does and what's broken in it and do that. And that's definitely the curiosity and the problem solving. Taking a broken toy and understanding how it works, and then fixing it and putting it back together, and then having the toy renewed, and that was really important. But to be honest, my dad is very much the same as me. Cornwall, there's not a lot of opportunities for much down here, especially in terms of engineering. I have got lucky in a way. I don't want that to be the case for the future. I really think that there is an opportunity around here, especially for now remote working, hybrid working. Certainly, like, people should look more in it. I'm looking at you, Paul, for your dodgy internet connection. We've got super fast Cornwall is a brilliant. That's it. You should move. But it's I'm really interested in that. And my dad is Cornwall born and bred. From a fishing family out of Newquay. Like, literally going back to the pure basics. And he's now an organics lead for a global scientific chemical company who produces things like cancer drugs and things like that. He provides all of the equipment that goes into making that. So it's like a lot of the screening stuff. So it enables to say, okay, well, what does this compound will look to save X thousands of lives through these types of drugs and things like that, as well as the fun stuff, because he made some color changing bubbles in his career as well. So I'll leave that to him. But he went through the same process I did. He left school. He didn't go to university because it wasn't for him. It wasn't right time. He started out an apprenticeship at a chemical manufacturing company. I did my engineering course. It did the same thing, and then we grew our careers from that point onwards. And it's a hard graft. It is a hard graft. I wouldn't deny it. It's if you want a cushy job, it's not for you. You much better. A lot of university is around. Is a lot of work. Don't be wrong. I know it's a lot of work, the dissertation, things like that. But there's also a lot of partying that happens at university. You won't get that when you're working full time, because you're working and trying to learn on the back of it. So you don't have much of a social life for the next 5 years. But out of the back of that, I've like you're saying, I'm 29, but I have 12 years industry experience, which puts me up there with the same people on my level. And that's really crucial. If you're really focused, if you're really passionate about one thing, maybe university isn't for you. Maybe try something different. Maybe do something different. And you can make the difference there. And then again, my dad did, and I did, and so I followed in his footsteps, really.
We talked about age, Mark, and as you rightly pointed out, Paul and I are at the towards the twilight of our middle age, and you aren't. It forces us to reflect on how we'll be remembered when we finally shuffle off. What's your legacy going to be? How will people describe Mark when you're no longer here with your passion?
To be honest, it's one of these things where it's like, for me, it doesn't bother me in the slightest if no one remembers who I am, as long as I made a difference. Like if I put in a development that was more sustainable than it was going to be previously, if I contributed to the net zero, if I contributed to making someone happier on a sad day, they don't need to remember who I am. They don't remember what it is. It's just go out, do better than you did yesterday. Right, that's the trick. It's keep growing, keep doing what you're doing, everyone has their passions, everyone has their thoughts, their things, and respect other people's opinions. I mean, and this is the thing I don't get. And for one of a dear friend of mine, we completely disagree on anything political. Right, completely out of the blue, just completely disagree. Still one of my best mates. Still someone I really get on with and I really enjoy, because it's a lot of stuff is designed to divide us, political stuff, football teams, whatever it is. But reality is, in 100 years, no one's going to give them monkeys. They might have all changed again. You look at the political parties from the 1900s versus what it is now. Who cares? it's all going to change again. Yeah,
everything's monkeys, track monkeys, data monkeys.
Yeah. Well, that's what we are, isn't it? I mean, in the broadest possible sense, we are but monkeys who have grown into a more developed society. So yeah, if people, I don't want people to remember me. I don't, I want to do what's right by me and my family, and teach my children to grow up to be, the next generation of people who are going to solve all the problems. But for me, it's very much go out there, do a kind thing, do whatever it needs. It takes for in your role, in your job, in your thing. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Go out and do it for the right reasons. I'm an engineer, not because it's not the world's most paid job. I could be a banker and probably still earn more money. I do it because I'm passionate about it, because I love it, because I want to do it, because I want to say, I did that. when I drive past the services on the particular road, I can go, I did that. I'd have my family laugh at me because I call them pedestrian refuge islands, which is and traffic signals rather than normal names. So that's what I want. That's what I'm after.
Beautiful answer.
George, so refreshing and wonderful. Because look, I'm never going to be that person that gets excited about engineering or data. I like the insight that comes from it, but it is so important that we all are passionate about something.
Yeah.
Because you know what, as a human race, right, we have achieved one heck of a lot. We've put stuff on Mars. We've walked on the moon. We've built incredible structures. We've built, motorway networks, road networks, rail networks, shipping, airplane. We've done so much. But there's not one of those things that we've just talked about that I could have any part in, because I'm just not that kind of person. But one thing that I've got that we probably, all of the people that are in that space have got that is in common. And you touched on it earlier, and I love the fact that you woke to the point, we're passionate about something. And we might be passionate about football. You can kind of align with statistics. I can engage with everything that you're talking about because you're passionate about it and you're bringing it to life for me. And the things that I've just really landed with me today about you, Mark, I love that it's your dad and your granddad, and it's like it's Newquay and Cornwall, it's fishing, but then you kind of have broken out of that and go out and do better than you did yesterday. What a philosophy to live life by. I love that. I just think, yes.
I'm sure that's attributed to someone else that isn't me, to be honest. I'm sure that is it.
Hey, it's yours now, mate. Just own that, baby. And go out and do something kind for somebody. I mean,
corny American advert somewhere that I've heard from watching NASCAR, but it's like, that's what it'll be from. I can't.
Mate, own it, because it's so good and so refreshing. And do you know what? So believable.
Yeah.
Because I think, many people can say stuff, but I actually believe that you might get up tomorrow and want to go and do something better than you did today. You won't better your podcast because you've peaked now. That's it. No, it won't get any better. You've been on the EV Cafe podcast. It's all the way downhill from here. But maybe, no, I'm joking aside. You'll be constantly developing. It's super interesting, John. We've had a lovely time with Mark. Is there anything that stands out to you, and any thoughts as we consider how we come into an end?
Yeah, love a nerd. And I think the other thing is something I'm going to take away forever, and I genuinely mean this, Mark. I often am accused of being a little bit, sickly sweet with people because I compliment them overly. In other people's opinions, they can all go do one. But for you, I genuinely will take away that thing you said about I made someone smile on a sad day as your legacy. And I absolutely adore that. You bring light more than heat into the world, and I think that's a remarkable quality in somebody so intelligent and so capable. You're a good human being. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. And I mean, you're talking. Paul was saying, he doesn't get passionate about engineering and things like that. But yeah, he's the the van man. He's passionate about vans, and you can look. Your part of your legacy is to go driving past every Amazon warehouse when they've all got loaded up with EV vans and going, well, I was a part of that. One way or another, you were a part of that.
Yeah.
So there's always something you can point out. Everything you work on, there's always something you can point out, and I think that's it. Remember what you've done. Remember what you're going to do in the future, and believe what you're going to do in the future, and do it. It might fail, whatever.
What a guy.
And you're right, Mark. It doesn't matter whether it fails. You've got to try, and that there's a somewhat famous rivalry between me and another member of the EV Cafe, should remain nameless. That we've got to back startups. It's not John. We've got to back startups. We've got to back people, even if they fail. We've got to invest and give them the start that they need, because the stats behind the light bulb must be phenomenal. The stats behind the Wright brothers and flying across the Atlantic or the English Channel and all of that sort of stuff. Everybody was failing many, many, many times before finally they succeeded. So I'm with you on that. And I'm sure in data and AI engineering and Hydrock's, projects and others, there's been many times when you've come up against the dead end, and you've had to sort of navigate back and kind of find another way. Fail and fail fast, right? And then find your way out of said dead end, and come up with it. But I mean, I'm excited for Hydrock and Stantec.
Stantec, yeah. Right? So we need to change the sign so it's up there so everyone remembers.
I know, I can see the sign, so I'm a visual person. It's like, I know, where's Stantec? What is it? So I was visualizing it. So Stantec, and they are very fortunate to have Mark Pearce in this business, and what you guys do is really helpful for the industry. So anybody that needs this kind of help, and obviously we are talking, many people that listen to this will be the charge point operators, people that are looking to plan transport, looking to plan their fleets, thinking about smart grids, the off-grid energy and the amount of energy that we need. It sounds from everything that you've said that you are the people with an answer to those questions, and you can help give intelligent answers so that people don't have to fail, that they don't have to get it wrong, that they can get it right, and they can deliver a solution that is good for today, but also for tomorrow as well, which is really where we want to go.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your insight, for representing Hydrock and Stantec so well. I
hope they agree. That's going to be true.
Well, listen, if they don't, send them to me. I'll sort them out, because you've done a fabulous job, sir. And anybody that has heard and listened to this could be incredibly confident that they're coming to somebody that is not only bloody intelligent with the brain the size of a planet, but emotionally intelligent and an incredibly good communicator and an incredibly good listener to the challenges of your customers, which has been evidenced by your award. So very well done. I've really enjoyed today. Thank you.
Good. No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much as well.
Pleasure. So everybody, please do share this podcast with whomever you might think might benefit from it, but also connect with Mark Pearce on LinkedIn. I'm sure that will be something. He's at Hydrock, or maybe it'll change to Stantec in the near future. But do connect with him. Follow those companies if you need any help in the world of engineering and the world of building out your charge point networks, your energy provision, all of that kind of stuff. You can connect with these guys, and also listen to all of our other podcasts. There's lots of other great people. Maybe not quite they're not all as great as Mark, but we do love a bit of competition, so we'll just kind of stir the pot a little bit. But I'm going to leave you with this one thought from Mark that I mentioned, and it was go out and do better than you did yesterday. Have a great day, everybody.